In this episode of Voice of the Sea, we visit Kauaʻi Sea Farm, a one-of-a-kind aquaculture operation located on the southwest side of Kauaʻi in the 20-acre saltwater pond, which is owned and cared for by the Palama family. We meet the people leading the revival of the fish pond and learn about restorative aquaculture techniques that are not only providing products for sale to local restaurants, but also helping to clean the pond. We check out research projects, sample their harvest, and look to the future to see what the revival of this unique local i'a will yield. We start off talking with Kauaʻi Sea Farm production manager, Dave Anderson.
We have a pretty impressive diversity of native species in the pond. We have a lot of ama, we have a lot of ava or milkfish. We have a very healthy population of different papio and Nōmilu in the pond. Also kaku, the barracuda. Those are getting quite large and we're trying to actively fish those ones out. We've also found uhu, parrotfish in the pond. We found a bunch of different veke, the goatfish in the pond. We found roi, the grouper, which is also not a native and not a welcome guest in our pond. We have a lot of tilapia, which is not native, and that population is thankfully decreasing as the pond is sort of coming back into a better balance with better exchange in the ocean. The salinity of Nōmilu is about the same, actually just slightly higher than the ocean. So we don't have a freshwater input, which is a common feature of most loko i'a throughout Hawaii. And so we have a little bit of a different situation than a standard loko i'a. From the time of Hurricane Iniki in 1992 until about 2016, the Kauaʻi channels were closed off to the ocean. So for 25 years, the pond became stagnant, and that was when all of the, basically almost everything in the pond died. It is a process to bring the whole system back into a balance.
Can you tell me just a little bit for our viewers, what is aquaculture?
So aquaculture generally is the production of any aquatic species that's not just extraction from the ocean. It can be in the form of shrimp farms, it can be in the form of cages with fish in the ocean, and then it can be in the form of lower trophic species that generally don't require feed input and have more of a net benefit on the environment they're in. So they can consume excess nutrients and keep systems in a better balance. So that would be things like oysters, clams, limu or seaweeds, anything that doesn't really require a feed input. And those are the species that we try to focus on growing.
You guys are kind of cultivating this sort of ecosystem of productivity that's allowing you to raise the clams and sea cucumbers while cleaning up the fish pond at the same time?
That is the concept, yeah. You know, we can take care of the excess nutrients both in the sediment and in the water column, which will produce a healthier environment for the native fish to come into the pond and thrive. This is both our clam nursery and then also where we have our breeding clams.
Oh.
So this tank here for breeding the mercenary clams, they require cool water and lots of microalgae food.
And I understand there used to be native clams in Nōmilu also. Are you guys looking to grow those at any point?
We are interested in trying to grow those. So these are actually native oysters that are covered in muck, but these are native oysters that naturally recruited into Nōmilu and grew on our PVC cages. So that's like, you see where they attach to the PVC frame, and we were able to pop them off without damaging them.
And do you know anything about how those taste?
They're delicious. We've eaten a bunch of them. They're much better than the non-native oysters we were growing.
So the water from the clams comes here to the limu?
Yep, and so we grow limu in here. So the clams are consuming the phytoplankton and microalgae that are in the pond water. And then as they're producing waste, that's turning into other micronutrients like nitrogen and other things that break down that turn into fertilizer for the limu Maunawea that we're growing in these tanks. Right now we're using one of our limu tanks for holding one of the sea cucumbers that we're working with.
Oh.
This is a nocturnal species, so you don't see them very much during the day. These trays form a habitat for them. So this is Stichopus horrens, or locally called namako sometimes. And this species was pretty commonly consumed in Hawaii, both in ancient Hawaii and also up until, from what I can tell, like 30 years ago. A lot of people that I talk to have fond memories of eating namako.
Oh, it has a lot of interesting colors. Can I see the feet on the bottom?
Its color, it's amphipods jumping on it too. Yeah, its colors can change pretty dramatically. So this cage just has natural epiphytes from the pond growing in it, which is an excellent food for the sea cucumbers. We don't feed it anything else, and they do very well in here.
Oh, wow.
These ones we've only started collecting a few months ago. This is also a Stichopus species. This species specifically is actually reportedly an endemic Hawaiian species, but it's not. It hasn't been described in literature yet, so it doesn't actually have a name. They do very well in the pond. All of them have survived in this cage now for 5 months. By consuming the waste on the bottom, you can recycle that into the water. That's the role of sea cucumbers in the ocean, is to get all the benthic detritus back into the environment in forms of nutrients that can be absorbed by other species like limu. There's a real opportunity in using that excess nutrients as feed for loli or sea cucumbers, and it would work back in the same context of generally restorative aquaculture and producing things that have a net benefit on the environment that they're grown in, and also provide a potential food source or funding source for local that are interested in selling them. The project will culminate in a sea grant workshop on Oahu for any local practitioners or anybody from the community that's interested in learning about the benefits of growing sea cucumbers, or just interested in the project more generally. These were 3 dishes prepared from a local chef using namako from the tank that we showed you earlier.
So all the same sea cucumber in each one?
Yes, same in each one. I've had this one before. This one's a really good ginger one. I think this one looks like it's wasabi, so it might be spicy, and then I'm not sure what that is, but it looks like there's some ogo in it, and so yeah, dig in.
All right. It's really good.
Yeah.
Like harder at first than I thought, but then it all of a sudden gets soft and almost dissolves.
Yeah, it melts.
Yeah.
It's like the first bite's like taco poke, and then after like the second, third bite, it just melts, doesn't linger.
Is there any taking out of the insides, or is it just the whole animal?
Yeah, we can share a video with you of that. He hits it with his knife so it turns stiff, and cuts it open, pulls the insides out, and scrapes out the muscles along the inside of it, and then just slices into thin slices. This is just for us to show how good it can taste, and that he would sell it if he had a supply. So hopefully we'll be able to supply them for him.
Oh, I like this one. This one's really good.
The University of Hawaii Sea Grant College Program focused on Hawaii's coasts and its communities through sustainable development, safe seafood supply, sustainable coastal tourism, hazard resilience, and healthy coastal ecosystems. Hawaii's Sea Grant.
You're watching Voice of the Sea. We're at Kauaʻi Sea Farm, talking story with aquaculture and hatchery technicians Kalalena Lum Won and Tim Leichliter.
Limu, this is just a new project we started doing 6 months ago. So we can't grow a whole lot. To keep the cycle going, we have to like pull it out and then transfer into another tank so they don't overcrowd. So we get this limu from a distributor in Oahu.
And then do you keep replenishing from your Oahu distributor, or is it spawning?
Yeah, we never got the culture yet, but as soon as we do start to figure out the culture part, we can start spawning them on our own.
Wow, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, super nice. That's why they like it at the restaurant, because it's fresh, like 20 minutes fresh. So it goes right from here to right onto the plate. So last week we harvested about 2 pounds.
Can I have a piece of it?
Yeah.
All right, so now what are you gonna do with this?
I usually rinse it out with the salt water, come to this back to the cleaning station, and yeah, once we clean it, then I'll weigh it. We gotta just scrub around the tank a little bit and then refill it. And then this will go back into the tank, and then by next week comes, the thing will be back to its original number.
Okay, Lena, tell me where we're going.
We're going out to the dock right now. Sort our clams through these barrels over here.
Is that because some of them grow faster than other ones?
Yes, so we gotta keep rotating them. But this part right here, this is our upweller dock. So this is pumping in water right here. This little air filter right here. Yeah, and it pulls it down through here, and it causes water to pull up underneath these barrels. Solar energy comes from these panels, goes right into this box, goes into this inverter, and then the pumps under this one right here, our air pump, and that powers the air stones to pull in the water. We station this dock to where the most food is coming into.
And by food, what do you mean?
A lot of algae, yeah.
And so that even though the clams look so tiny, they're still filtering the food at that size.
Yes, they get a lot of food from this algae that comes in from the ocean. There's a screen at the bottom of these barrels. It catches this so it doesn't fall through.
So how many is in that beaker there?
This one is about 5,000 or so, yeah. So these are a little bigger. Well, 10 years ago, I came down here and I was like blown away by how beautiful it was. And it was completely different. This was all bushes, mangroves. There's no fish in the pond. The pond was totally dead. The family was gonna sell it, and I was like, no way, let's try to do something to help them out. And yeah, we just came down here to have fun and hang out at the beach and do work down here. And yeah, 10 years later, this is where we're at. It's been a long process coming from there, watching this whole pond come back to life. It was pretty amazing. We had a lot of help with like Kua. Their organization kind of like jolted us to, do more work down here, stuff like this. So it definitely gave us more energy and motivation to keep doing this kind of work. Yeah, so it all started from there.
I'm a hatchery technician here at Kauaʻi Sea Farm, as well as president and director of operations of a local small grassroots nonprofit doing ocean conservation work around Kauaʻi, and we're kind of intertwined with a lot of the restorative aquaculture work projects that are going on here at Kauaʻi Sea Farm at Nōmilu fish pond.
So tell me about some of the specific work that you do here.
I help to keep up with all of the breeding species that we have going on in our restorative aquaculture projects. So the clams and the sea cucumbers, and we've just recently brought on native urchins. That means keeping up with their food, like microalgae, and growing out the phytoplankton and keeping that clean. And then once they do spawn from these breeders, I take care of all the larvae with Dave. When you work down here, you're kind of an everything person, so it's good that you have construction experience, good to do a little bit of carpentry, a little bit of plumbing, but if you don't, and you're gonna learn it, because aquaculture is everything from science to that, right? You're jumping into a lot of different roles and wearing lots of hats in one day. The species that we're working with is Trypnoustis gratia, or collector urchins, the ones that kind of disguise themselves, and they are really valuable as far as one, in the aquaculture food industry for uni, and then two, other islands, like especially the project in Kaneohe, where they've actually been able to use them to control invasive algae outbreaks. Instead of using like really expensive machinery and equipment, they're able to grow out this biocontrol that is native, that people do actually like to eat off the reef too, so it's not like they're ever going to over-dominate, and they're kind of controlling that problem. So that's one of the things that we hope to do with this program, is that we can get urchins to a lot of the spots on Kauaʻi that would benefit from having some biocontrol, as far as like places that have really large invasive outbreaks of limu. For Kauaʻi, we have a spiny seaweed problem, Acanthophora specifera. It's probably the most abundant invasive species I've seen on this island. These guys, it was our first trial and error doing it, but we got two after all of everything. We've had, I think, 150 or 200,000 larvae we started with. Once we got down to the third week of larval exchange in the tanks, we came down to about 80,000. Did water exchange every 2 days or so. We got two. I know it's not a lot, but it gives you hope that we can do it, and we learn so much. So today I'm gonna measure them. 35 millimeters today. 6 months and 10 days.
That guy had a little brittle star on him when you brought
Did
him
he?
on before, yeah.
Oh yeah. He did. He still does.
He still has.
Yeah. That one's more like 31 millimeters. We really do need these programs for our island, just as literally every other island has a coral nursery, has some sort of restorative aquaculture facility, and it's just so exciting that we're finally kind of getting that for Kauaʻi. And when I went back to school to start doing this stuff 4 years ago, none of that existed, so I feel pretty blessed to be doing what I'm doing now.
Right on. And then there also could become a commercial product
for sure.
as part of the farm.
As far as uni goes, I mean, we have one Japanese restaurant that it has high interest in them. It's just a matter of proving that we can really get a good amount of them, and I think this split is a beautiful thing too. Once we do get this stuff on the menu, whether it be the sea cucumbers or the urchins or any of those native species, to know that like somebody is buying that and they're going to eat it, but their purchase of that's also helping to restore some of the populations that have been so depleted by non-sustainable methods of harvesting them. We have community work days that we help with. We just had our first really, really successful one last month, and we had about 40 volunteers down here removing invasive coastal plants and planting native coastal plants, and then removing invasive algae that we're going to use for feeding our urchins, right?
We are looking for a few heroes, mentors, trailblazers, innovators, a passion to change lives, spark curiosity, open hearts, and awaken minds, help students answer the question, who am I? This could be your calling, but this is no job. It's the journey of a lifetime. Be a hero. Be a teacher.
You're watching Voice of the Sea. We're talking with Palama family member and president of Kauaʻi Sea Farm, Lynn Taylor, and her husband and director of operations, Thayne Taylor.
We are at Nomilo. Some people call it Pālamas because my grandfather's name that's a family name, Pālama. Philip Kauaʻi Pālama Sr. He was a really amazing man. He purchased this property it's now over 100 years ago, or right at about 100 years. My older brother Ralph, he told me that I really needed to get more involved at Nomilo, and he was encouraging me to do something with the shellfish because it was planted, as most people know, with hard-shell clams back in the 60s, and they flourished. At that time, I was working with the Department of Health to become a certified shellfish grower. But yeah, eventually that's how it all started. That was back in the 80s, and we did become the first shellfish growers in the state of Hawaii.
I came here in 1983, and I hiked down here and I saw this place, like wow, this is pretty nice. never dreamed that 6 years later I would meet a lady that convinced me to come down here and help her with her shellfish growers project. We were down here for 1989 through 1992, and in that time we became best friends and we got married. We were selling clams, pulling clams out of the pond at that time. And Iki hit and it kind of blew all that project away, no pun intended.
I feel really good that we have made the fish pond healthier. We've got all kinds of fish back in the pond. The water quality is good. We're learning a lot every day about how this pond works and what's practical for growing, what isn't.
What can you tell me about how the environment is changing as you're bringing the fish pond back to working life?
Yeah, that's real exciting. The shoreline fishing, since we have reopened the Kauaʻi, has just taken off because the fish ponds drain into the, goes into the ocean, and all that algae is attracting all the fish. But that has been a big change that the fishermen themselves have noticed. Obviously, we want to be profitable. We are a business, but we also have become a research and development facility. There is so much that goes into caring for a piece of property, and it is a huge responsibility. But I feel really blessed. I've met so many wonderful people. I would say thank you to the community for supporting us. Sea Grant, you guys have been wonderful. I've met so many amazing marine scientists and grad students who come down here. I get very enthused.
I see this as being a cornerstone for Kauaʻi, as it has been in the past, to provide not only for the family but also for the community and at large the state.
Do you have advice for other groups trying to do similar work? How might they get similar permits to you?
ACUA, is a great organization, and they have lent their voice. It's kind of like a lobbying voice for anything that has to do with aquaculture, and put together a very good advisory board. I think we have first-class advisory board. Even if you're nonprofit or whatever, find people that are smarter than you are to put everything together, bar none, anything you do, and network. Because if you don't have support, it's going to be an uphill battle.
What is your vision for the future?
My vision of the future for this place is for it to be self-sustaining, employing a lot more people than we have now. Could be a place where we'd have a research arm, we'd have an educational arm, and a food processing arm. I eventually see where this will be again the #1 mullet producing pond in the state, as it was in back in the day, and being a very bright, shiny diamond in the community for Kauaʻi.
Restorative aquaculture can help rehabilitate waterways and coastlines, provide food sustainability and jobs, and support healthy communities and ecosystems. Volunteer with Ho'omalu Kekai at Nomilo, or get involved with a loko ia in your community today. Learn more at voiceofthesea.org. Follow us on social media at Voice of the Sea TV. Mahalo for watching Voice of the Sea. Exploring Our Fluid Earth is the dynamic curriculum developed by the University of Hawaii's Curriculum Research and Development Group. The award-winning Fluid Earth and Living Ocean textbooks are now interactive and online. New activities, updated content, and a teacher community. Exploring Our Fluid Earth is now freely available. Find out more at exploringourfluidearth.org.